The conference room in Geneva had never been designed for aliens. Patricia Hayes watched as the maintenance crew removed 3 chairs to make space for Ambassador Quell, whose moth-like body required nearly twice the width of a human seat. His wings, delicate and covered in silver dust, trembled slightly as he settled into position. 2 other delegates flanked him, but Patricia's attention stayed fixed on Quell. He was the one who'd been talking for the past 20 minutes, and his voice carried a desperate edge that made her old military instincts kick in. "We need doctors," Quell said again, his translator device rendering his clicking speech into flat English. "Engineers, agricultural specialists, people who can help refugees. We have 17 worlds that are simply gone. 4 billion souls scattered across our remaining colonies. They're hungry. They're sick. They're dying in camps that were never meant to hold so many." Patricia leaned forward. Around the table, representatives from 40 nations shifted in their seats. Most looked sympathetic. A few looked suspicious. She'd read the briefing materials 3 times and something wasn't adding up. "Ambassador, you've explained the humanitarian crisis very clearly," she said, "but you haven't explained what's causing it. You mentioned something called the Ravager Swarm. What are they? Why are they attacking your worlds?" Quell's antennae drooped. "They consume everything. They land on a world and strip it clean within weeks. Every living thing, every resource. They leave nothing but bare rock. And your military forces?" Patricia pressed. "What's being done to stop them?" The room fell silent. Quell exchanged glances with his fellow delegates. One of them, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, pulsed with colors that the translator couldn't interpret. "We don't understand the question," Quell finally said. "We have peacekeeping forces. They maintain order at refugee sites. They direct evacuations. But military action against the Ravagers would be—" He paused, searching for words. "It would be barbaric. We're civilized species. We don't wage war." Patricia felt something cold settle in her stomach. She'd spent 30 years in the army before taking this UN position. She'd seen what happened when civilized people refused to fight back against those who had no such qualms. "Let me be clear," she said slowly. "These Ravagers are destroying your worlds, killing your people, and you're not fighting back at all." "We evacuate," Quell said, as if this explained everything. "We save who we can and relocate them. Fighting would only lead to more death. Our philosophers determined long ago that violence only breeds more violence. We've had peace in the Galactic Union for 800 cycles." "You had peace," Patricia corrected. Past tense. The French delegate coughed diplomatically. "Ambassador Quell, you're asking Earth to send humanitarian workers into an active war zone. Our people would need protection. Security escorts at minimum." "Of course," Quell said quickly. "We can provide peacekeepers to ensure safe conditions at the refugee centers." Patricia caught the eye of David Rodriguez across the room. He was in civilian clothes now, but she'd served with him in 3 different combat zones. His expression told her he was thinking the same thing she was. These aliens had no idea what they were asking for. They thought humans would show up with medicine and food supplies and kind words, then stand by politely while people died. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. Details were discussed, numbers proposed, logistics debated. Finally, the UN Secretary-General stood and addressed the room. "Earth will provide assistance," he announced. "We'll send a delegation of 200 volunteers to assess the situation and provide what aid we can. We'll include medical personnel, engineers, and agricultural experts as requested." Quell's wings fluttered with relief. "Thank you. Thank you. You're saving lives. Our ship can transport your people immediately. We've already lost too much time." As the meeting adjourned, Patricia found herself walking alongside Rodriguez in the hallway outside. "They're going to be shocked," he said quietly. "I know. Those 200 volunteers. How many are actual aid workers?" Patricia checked her tablet. 50. Doctors, nurses, engineers, farmers. Good people who volunteered for the right reasons. She paused. "The other 150 are yours. Special forces from 9 different countries. Best we could pull together on short notice." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "They asked for humanitarian aid, and they'll get it. But our humanitarian workers aren't going anywhere without protection. Those peacekeepers Quell mentioned wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real fight." Patricia stopped walking and turned to face him. "David, I need you to understand something. Officially, you're there as security, to protect our civilians. That's the mission. And unofficially, Patricia glanced down the hallway, making sure they were alone. Unofficially, I spent 3 decades watching good people die because politicians were too afraid to do what was necessary. These aliens are going extinct because they're too civilized to save themselves. If you see an opportunity to actually help, to actually stop these ravagers from killing more people, then you use your best judgment as a commander in the field. That's not exactly following the UN mandate. No, Patricia agreed. It's not. But they asked us for aid. They just don't understand what aid means to a species from a death world. We don't just feed the hungry and heal the sick. We protect them. By whatever means necessary. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. How much does the Secretary General know about this? He knows we're sending soldiers. He's not stupid. But he has plausible deniability, and so do you. If this goes sideways, I'm the one who authorized it. She met his eyes. Can you do this? Can you take our people into a war zone and keep them safe? While these aliens figure out that sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them? Yes, ma'am. Good, you leave in 6 hours. Pack for combat operations, not a humanitarian mission. And David? When you see what's really happening out there, when you see those refugee camps and those abandoned worlds, trust your instincts. You've fought monsters before. These ravagers are just a different kind. Rodriguez saluted, old habits kicking in despite both of them being in civilian roles now. Patricia returned it, then watched him walk away down the corridor. She wondered if she'd just made the right decision or a terrible mistake. The aliens had asked for help. Earth was sending it. But help from a death world didn't come in the form they expected. It came with guns and soldiers and the willingness to do violence in defense of the innocent. The Galactic Union wanted aid workers. They were getting warriors instead, and Patricia suspected that before this was over, they'd learn the difference between asking Deathworlders for help and being ready for what that actually meant. Dr. Olivia Grant had treated gunshot wounds, burn victims, and battlefield trauma for 15 years. She thought she'd seen every kind of suffering humans could inflict on each other. Then she walked into Refuge Station Omega and realized she'd been wrong about what suffering actually looked like. The docking bay smelled like fear. She couldn't identify the specific sense. Nothing her human nose recognized, but the emotion was universal. Thousands of aliens packed into spaces meant for hundreds. Their various forms pressed together in ways that looked painful. Some were small enough to fit in her hand. Others had to crouch to avoid hitting the ceiling. All of them looked terrified. "Stay close to the security team," Rodriguez said, his voice calm despite the chaos. His soldiers had formed a protective ring around the human civilians the moment they disembarked from the Union ship. Their weapons weren't drawn, but Olivia could see their hands resting near holsters, ready. A peacekeeping officer approached. He was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His uniform was pristine, and he carried what looked like a baton attached to his belt. Not a gun, a baton, for crowd control. "Welcome to Refuge Station Omega," he said through his translator. "I am Officer Trent. I'll show you to the medical facilities. We've prepared space for your doctors to work." Olivia followed him through corridors packed with refugees. Children cried in languages she couldn't understand. Adults stared at her with expressions that transcended species barriers. Hopelessness, exhaustion, the look of people who'd lost everything. The medical bay was overwhelmed. Injured aliens lay on the floor because all the beds were full. The Union medical staff looked just as exhausted as their patients. An older alien, his scales dulled with age, approached Olivia with something that might have been relief in his large eyes. "You're the Earth doctor? Thank the cosmos. I'm Dr. Ferris. We have 200 critical patients and only 5 staff. People are dying because we can't reach them in time." Olivia dropped her bag and got to work. Within an hour, she'd assessed the situation and gathered her team. 12 human doctors and 20 nurses. They split up, each taking a section of the massive medical facility. The work was hard. Alien physiology was different from anything she'd studied, but pain was pain. Blood was blood, even when it was blue or green or clear. She could help these people, but 3 days into their arrival, alarms started screaming throughout the station. Rodriguez found her in the middle of surgery, her hands inside an alien who'd been crushed during evacuation. "Doctor, we need to talk now. I'm in the middle of saving a life. There are 10,000 lives about to be lost if we don't act fast. Finish up." Olivia worked faster, stabilizing her patient and letting her nurses handle the rest. She found Rodriguez in a monitoring room, staring at displays showing a nearby planet. Haven's Rest, they called it. An agricultural world. She could see cities from orbit, farmland stretching between them. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "A death sentence." Rodriguez pointed to other displays showing ships approaching the planet. Dark shapes, organic-looking, moving in swarm patterns. "Those are Ravagers. They'll reach Haven's Rest in 6 hours. Station Command just ordered a full evacuation of orbit." "What about the people on the surface?" Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "The peacekeeping forces say it's too late. There are 50,000 civilians down there. They're writing them off." Olivia stared at him. "Writing them off? We're just going to leave them? The Union is? We're not." He pulled up a tactical display. "I've got 50 soldiers ready to deploy. We can take our shuttles down, get to the population centers, and extract as many as we can before the Ravagers land." "That's not your mission. You're supposed to protect the humanitarian workers, not launch rescue operations." "Doctor, you're right. So I need you to volunteer to go down there. Make it a medical mission. Then my orders are to protect you, which means going wherever you go." Olivia understood what he was asking. Cover. Plausible deniability. A way to do the right thing without directly violating their mandate. She thought about the 50,000 people about to die. About the children crying in the refugee stations. About the oath she'd taken to do no harm. "When do we leave?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. 30 minutes. Bring emergency medical supplies." The descent to Haven's Rest was rough. Olivia strapped herself into the military shuttle next to a young soldier named Sam Morrison. He looked barely old enough to shave, but his hands were steady on his rifle. "First combat deployment?" she asked. "No, ma'am. Third, but first time fighting aliens." He glanced at her. "You scared?" "Terrified. Me too. But the lieutenant says fear is just your body getting ready to do something hard. Better to be scared and moving than frozen and safe." They landed in the capital city. The streets were chaos. Local aliens ran in panic, trying to reach evacuation points that didn't exist. Rodriguez split his soldiers into teams, each taking a different district. Olivia went with Sam's squad. "We're looking for survivors who can't evacuate on their own," Rodriguez had briefed. "Injured, elderly, young. Get them to the shuttles. We've got maybe 4 hours before the Ravagers arrive." Olivia spent those hours running through alien streets, treating injuries, helping carry those who couldn't walk. The soldiers were efficient, professional, and surprisingly gentle with the civilians. She watched Sam kneel down to comfort a small alien child who'd been separated from her parents, his rifle slung over his shoulder while he made silly faces to stop her crying. They loaded the first shuttle with 300 refugees, then a second, then a third. The humans worked like machines, tireless, driven. Olivia saw soldiers sharing their water rations with dehydrated aliens. Saw them giving up their seats on shuttles so more civilians could fit. Then the Ravagers arrived early. Olivia heard the screaming first, then the sound of something massive moving through the city. She turned and saw them. Creatures 12 feet tall, covered in black chitin armor with mandibles that could tear through metal. They moved fast, too fast for something so large. "Contact!" Sam shouted. His rifle came up and he fired. The sound was deafening. Other soldiers joined in. Olivia watched the bullets hit the lead Ravager, saw the creature stumble but not fall. Its armor was thick. "Fall back to the shuttle." Rodriguez's voice over the radio. "Fighting withdrawal! Civilians first." What followed was chaos. The soldiers formed a line between the Ravagers and the fleeing refugees. They fired in controlled bursts, moving backward step by step. Olivia ran with a group of civilians, her medical training useless against monsters. She saw a Ravager grab a soldier, saw Sam throw a grenade that exploded in green fire. They made it to the shuttle. Barely. The soldiers piled in last, some wounded, all exhausted. As they lifted off, Olivia looked down at the city. More Ravagers were pouring in, thousands of them. But the streets where they'd been were empty. Everyone who could be saved had been saved. Back on the station, Officer Trent met them at the docking bay. His pristine uniform seemed obscene compared to the blood-covered humans stumbling off the shuttles. "You violated protocols," he said to Rodriguez. "You engaged in combat. You were supposed to be security personnel, not warriors." Rodriguez, covered in dirt and alien blood, looked at the 2,000 refugees filing off the shuttles behind them. "We saved lives. You used violence. I used what was necessary." Rodriguez stepped closer to the peacekeeping officer. "Your people were going to let them die because actually fighting back would be uncivilized. We're from Earth. We're from a death world where everything wants to kill us. We learned a long time ago that sometimes the only way to save lives is to take them. You asked for aid. This is what aid looks like when you ask Deathworlders. Olivia watched Trent's face cycle through emotions. Shock, disgust, and finally, something that might have been shame. He looked at the refugees, alive because humans had been willing to fight for them. Ambassador Quell will want to speak with you, Trent finally said. Good, Rodriguez replied. I want to speak with him too, because this is just the beginning. The video had spread across the Galactic Union faster than anyone expected. Someone on Refuge Station Omega had recorded the humans fighting the Ravagers. Someone else had uploaded it to the Union's information network. Now, 6 billion beings across 100 worlds were watching 50 human soldiers hold a line against 300 Ravagers, while civilians escaped behind them. General David Rodriguez, recently promoted after Earth sent reinforcements, stood in Ambassador Quell's office and watched the alien politician pace nervously. His wings kept twitching, a sign of stress. There are protests on 12 worlds, Quell said. Conservative councils calling humans barbarians, warmongers. They say we made a mistake asking Deathworlders for help. They say violence only brings more violence. And what do you say? Rodriguez asked. Quell stopped pacing. I say 2,000 people are alive who would be dead. I say I watched your soldiers share their food with refugees. I saw your doctor work for 30 hours straight saving lives. I say... He trailed off, his translator struggling with whatever emotion he was feeling. I say I was wrong about many things. But your people still want us gone, some do. Others want you to save them. The Union Council is divided. Quell pulled up a star map, highlighting systems in red. The Ravagers have hit 3 more worlds since you arrived. We evacuated 2. The 3rd was too far from any station. 400 million dead in 5 days. Rodriguez studied the map. The Ravagers were moving in a pattern, hitting agricultural worlds and mining colonies, stripping them of resources and moving on. Classic scorched Earth tactics, except the Earth wasn't just scorched. It was consumed down to bedrock. What's Earth sending us? Quell asked. 30,000 soldiers, 200 ships, enough firepower to make a difference. Rodriguez zoomed in on one system. New Prosperity. Industrial world. Population 4 billion. I'm betting that's their next target. How do you know? Because it's what I'd hit. Take out their industrial capacity, and the Union can't even manufacture the ships you need for evacuations. He turned to Quell. We need to stop thinking about evacuations and start thinking about defense. We don't have a military. Then we'll build one. We've got 3 weeks before the Ravagers reach New Prosperity. Let me use that time to train your people. Quell's antennae flattened against his head. Train them to kill? Train them to survive. There's a difference. Rodriguez pulled up files on his tablet. We've analyzed Ravager tactics. They're not mindless. They communicate, coordinate, adapt, but they rely on overwhelming numbers and biological armor. They're vulnerable to explosives, fire, and concentrated small arms fire. Your people have industrial capacity. We can manufacture weapons. The Council will never approve. Then don't ask them. Ask for volunteers. Put out a call across the Union. Anyone willing to learn how to defend their homes. We'll train them. 3 weeks of chaos followed. Rodriguez set up training camps on 5 different worlds. To his surprise, thousands volunteered. Not warriors. These aliens had no warrior culture. But parents who'd lost children, farmers who'd watched their worlds burn, people who were tired of running. Lieutenant Sam Morrison found himself training a platoon of Quellans, rabbit-like aliens who were naturally timid. They jumped at loud noises. They froze when faced with aggression. But they learned. Slowly, painfully, they learned to hold a rifle steady, to aim, to fire. I don't know if I can do this, one of them said. His name was Pip, and he'd been a teacher before the Ravagers came. We're not meant for violence. Sam adjusted Pip's stance. Nobody's meant for violence. But sometimes it finds us anyway. You're not learning to be a killer. You're learning to be a protector. Big difference, is there? Sam thought about the child he'd comforted on Haven's Rest, about the refugees he'd helped save. Yeah, there is. Killers take lives because they want to. Protectors take lives because they have to. Because there's someone behind them worth protecting. The training continued. Earth soldiers taught alien volunteers everything they could. Basic infantry tactics, weapons handling, medical training, how to dig a trench, how to set an ambush, how to hold a position against superior numbers. Meanwhile, Dr. Olivia Grant was dealing with different challenges. Her medical facility had expanded to include alien volunteers who wanted to learn combat medicine. She found herself teaching a 6-armed medic named Trill how to treat human injuries. "Your species is so fragile," Trill observed, examining a training diagram, "but also resilient. You recover from wounds that would kill most of us." "Deathworld evolution," Olivia explained. "Everything on Earth is trying to kill us, so we evolved to be hard to kill. High pain tolerance, fast healing, redundant systems. We can lose a lot of blood and keep fighting." "Why would you want to keep fighting when injured? Why not flee?" "Because sometimes what you're protecting is more important than your own survival." Trill's species had no facial expressions Olivia could read, but his voice carried confusion. "That's illogical. Maybe. But it's what makes us human." The day the Ravagers arrived at New Prosperity, Rodriguez had 8,000 trained defenders and 20,000 humans. Not enough to defend a planet of 4 billion, but enough to make a stand. The Union admirals wanted to evacuate. Rodriguez convinced them to try something different. "We let them land," he explained to the command council. "We let them think they're hitting an undefended world. Then we hit them with everything we've got. Ambush tactics. We bleed them, make them pay for every meter they advance." "You'll lose people," an admiral argued. "Lots of people. We'll lose more if we keep running." "Eventually you run out of places to run to." Rodriguez pulled up tactical displays. "We've fortified key positions. Weapons caches at strategic points, civilian evacuation routes that feed into defended corridors. We're not trying to stop every Ravager. We're trying to stop enough that they decide this world costs too much." The admiral looked at Quell. "Ambassador." Quell's wings were still, calm. "General Rodriguez, if you can save even 1 billion lives on New Prosperity, you'll have done what the Union couldn't do in 2 years. You have authorization. The battle lasted 3 days. The Ravagers landed in force expecting an easy harvest. Instead, they found humans dug into defensive positions with fields of fire covering every approach. They found alien volunteers who'd never held weapons before but who held them now, fighting for their homes. Sam Morrison's platoon held a bridge on the outskirts of the capital. Pip was next to him, his rifle shaking in his paws. The Ravagers came like a wave, hundreds of them, their armor gleaming in the setting sun. "Hold," Sam said calmly. "Wait for optimal range. Remember your training, the Ravagers got closer." Sam could smell them now, something like rotting meat and ozone. Pip's breathing was fast, panicked. "Hold. 50 meters, 40, 30, fire." The combined human and alien fire was devastating. Ravagers fell. Others climbed over their corpses. Explosives detonated. Fire spread. The bridge became a killing field. And through it all, Sam kept his voice calm, directing fire, calling out targets, keeping his platoon focused. Pip took a hit. Acid blood from a dying Ravager splashed his arm. He screamed, but he didn't run. He switched his rifle to his other hand and kept firing. "You're doing it," Sam shouted over the noise. "You're protecting your people." The Ravagers broke. Actually broke. After 6 hours of sustained combat, they retreated. Not far, but they retreated. It was the first time anyone in the Union had seen them do that. The battle continued across the planet. Humans and aliens fighting side by side, taking casualties, taking ground, holding positions. The Ravagers adapted, changed tactics, pushed harder, but so did the defenders. On the 3rd day, something changed. The Ravagers stopped attacking. They pulled back to their landing zones and sat there as if waiting for orders. Rodriguez watched from orbit, exhausted, running on stimulants and willpower. "What are they doing?" Quell asked. "Reassessing," Rodriguez said. "We hurt them. Really hurt them. They're deciding if this world is worth the cost." 6 hours later, the Ravager fleet lifted off. They left New Prosperity's orbit and jumped to another system. Behind them, they left a scarred world, but a living one. The casualties came in slowly. 340 humans dead. 2,200 wounded. 4,000 alien volunteers dead. 8,000 wounded. Numbers that would have been catastrophic in any previous Union conflict. But 4 billion people were alive. 4 billion people who would have died if they just evacuated and let the Ravagers have the world. Rodriguez found Pip in a medical facility, his arm bandaged but his eyes bright with something that might have been pride. "We won," Pip said. "We actually won." "You won," Rodriguez corrected. You and all the others who decided to fight. We just showed you how. Is this what war is? Protecting others? Rodriguez thought about all the wars he'd fought. The good ones and bad ones, the necessary ones and pointless ones. War is complicated, but this was the right thing to do. You saved your world. News spread through the Union faster than before. This time there were fewer protests. This time people saw what was possible when you fought back, when you refused to just run and die. The Conservative Council still called humans warmongers, but their voices were getting quieter, drowned out by billions of people who'd just learned something important. Sometimes violence was the answer, not the best answer, not the desired answer. But when the alternative was extinction, sometimes violence was mercy. 8 months after humans arrived in Union space, a protest turned violent on the colony world of Peaceful Harbor. 2,000 demonstrators gathered outside the human military headquarters, demanding Earth's forces leave. They called humans corrupting influences. They said the Union was becoming what it had fought against for centuries, a civilization built on violence. Patricia Hayes watched the footage from Earth. The protesters were peaceful at first, holding signs written in various alien languages. Then someone threw something. A human soldier raised his weapon defensively. Someone in the crowd panicked. More soldiers responded. Within minutes, what started as a peaceful protest became a riot. 3 aliens died, trampled in the chaos. Not shot, not killed by humans, but dead nonetheless, and the humans were blamed. She contacted Rodriguez immediately. His face on the screen looked older than it had 8 months ago. Command age people fast. Tell me what happened, she said. Our soldiers followed protocol. Weapons stayed on safe. No shots fired. But the crowd spooked and people got hurt in the stampede. He rubbed his face. We're losing the narrative, Patricia. Half the Union sees us as saviors. The other half sees us as occupiers. Are they wrong? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. We've established military law on 12 frontier worlds. Mandatory curfews. Restricted travel. We're detaining Ravager prisoners for interrogation. The Union's Bioethics Council calls it torture. Is it? We're not hurting them, but we're keeping them locked up and trying to learn their communication patterns, trying to predict their movements. Some of the methods are aggressive, sensory manipulation, psychological pressure, things that would violate Union law. Patricia pulled up reports from the frontier. Human forces had stopped the Ravager advance cold. No new worlds had fallen in 4 months, but the cost was showing. Alien civilians living under human military authority were growing resentful. There were stories of soldiers being too rough during security checks, of human commanders overruling local civilian government. There's something else, Rodriguez said. Intelligence found something disturbing. We captured a Ravager scout ship intact. Our linguists have been working on their communication systems. And the Ravagers aren't just mindless monsters. They're intelligent, sophisticated, they have culture, history, art, and Patricia, they're terrified. Of us? No, of something else. Something they're running from. Rodriguez transmitted a file. We found this in their ship's data core. It's a star chart showing their territory, and there's a massive blank space at the edge of it. Hundreds of systems that just went dark over the last decade. The Ravagers aren't invading Union space. They're fleeing into it. Patricia stared at the map. What's in that blank space? We don't know. But whatever it is, it scares the Ravagers enough that they're willing to become refugees, just like the Union species. Have you told anyone else? Ambassador Quell knows. He's trying to convince the Council to authorize a deep strike mission into Ravager space to investigate. They're resisting, officially because it's too dangerous, unofficially because it would mean working with Ravagers. 3 days later, a Union colony surrendered to the Ravagers rather than accept human protection. The colony of New Garden, population 20 million, broadcast a message saying they'd rather trust the mercy of the Ravagers than live under human military rule. They ordered human forces to leave their system. Rodriguez withdrew his troops. He had no choice. The Union Council backed New Garden's decision. 5 days later, the Ravagers arrived. The colony tried to negotiate, tried to surrender peacefully. The Ravagers ignored them and began the harvest. Within a week, New Garden was stripped to bedrock. 20 million dead. The backlash was immediate. How could humans let this happen? Why didn't they intervene? The same people who demanded humans leave were now demanding to know why they'd followed orders. Rodriguez sent Patricia a simple message. I'm done asking permission. The Deep Strike mission launched without Council approval. 50 human ships and, surprisingly, 3 Ravager vessels that had approached Union lines under white flag. The Ravager Queens, the intelligent leadership of the swarms, wanted to talk. Wanted to share what they knew about the threat coming from deeper space. Lieutenant Sam Morrison was on one of the strike ships. He'd volunteered immediately when Rodriguez called for crews. Pip had volunteered too, though Sam had tried to talk him out of it. "You've done enough," Sam had said. "You defended your world. You earned your peace." "There is no peace," Pip replied. "Not until we know what's really happening." "I'm coming." They jumped into Ravager space together, human and alien ships side by side. The journey took 3 days. They passed dead worlds, planets that had been harvested by Ravagers stripped clean, ghost systems where the Ravagers themselves had lived before fleeing. Finally, they reached the edge of the blank space on the map. What they found made Sam's blood run cold. A planet hung in space, but it wasn't a planet anymore. It was a perfect sphere of metal. Every trace of the original world had been consumed and reconstructed into something alien. Around it, clouds of small objects moved in precise patterns. Millions of them. Maybe billions. "What am I looking at?" Sam asked. The Ravager Queen on the command channel spoke. Her voice, translated by the system, carried ancient fear. The silence. "It came to our worlds first. We fought. We lost. We fled. It follows." Dr. Olivia Grant was on the science vessel in the fleet. She'd been studying the Ravager biology, trying to understand them better. Now she was analyzing the readings from the metal planet. "It's nanotechnology," she reported. "Self-replicating machines. They disassemble matter at the molecular level and rebuild it into more of themselves. That planet was probably a lush world once. Now it's just raw material converted into computing substrate and more nanomachines." "Can we fight it?" Rodriguez asked. "With conventional weapons?" "No. Each individual machine is smaller than a blood cell. You can't shoot them, can't bomb them. They consume the explosives and use them as fuel. The only reason they haven't spread everywhere is that they move slowly between systems. But once they arrive, nothing stops them." "The Ravagers tried?" The Queen responded. "We threw everything at the silence. Biological weapons, nuclear fire, antimatter. It absorbed everything, learned from everything. Adapted. We lost 300 billion of our people before we realized running was the only option." Sam felt something hollow in his chest. Humanity had been fighting to save the Union from the Ravagers. Now they were learning the Ravagers were victims too, and something worse was coming. "How long until it reaches Union space?" Rodriguez asked. Olivia checked the data. "Based on its current rate of expansion, 18 months. Maybe less if it speeds up after consuming more resources." The fleet returned to Union space with the news. Rodriguez called an emergency meeting of the Union Council, Human Command, and the Ravager Queens. Ambassador Quell presided, his wings drooping with the weight of what they'd learned. "We've been fighting the wrong enemy," Quell said quietly. "The Ravagers were refugees. We should have helped them. Instead, we fought them while the real threat grew stronger. We didn't know," Patricia said from her Earth connection. "And if we'd helped the Ravagers, they'd have harvested Union worlds legally instead of illegally. The result would be the same. So what do we do now?" a Union admiral asked. "How do we fight something that can't be killed?" Rodriguez pulled up a tactical projection. "We fall back. Establish a defensive line around the core Union worlds. Abandon the frontier. Concentrate our forces and resources on a perimeter that we can actually hold." "Abandon billions of people?" another admiral protested. "Save trillions," Rodriguez countered. "Because if we try to defend everything, we'll defend nothing. The silence will spread through our scattered defenses like they're not even there." He highlighted systems on the map. "We have resources for one defensive line. One chance. We make our stand here," a Ravager Queen spoke. "Our swarms will help. We have billions of soldiers. We can hold positions while you evacuate civilians behind the line. You'd fight alongside us?" Quell asked. "After everything?" "We're all refugees now," the Queen said. "From the same threat. We fight together or die separately." The vote was close. Many Union members couldn't accept working with Ravagers. Couldn't accept that their former enemies were now allies. But the alternative was extinction. The motion passed, barely. Sam found Pip after the meeting. The small alien was staring at a star map, looking at all the worlds that would be abandoned. "My home world is in the abandonment zone," Pip said quietly. "Everything I knew. Everyone I left behind. We're just leaving them to the silence. Sam didn't have easy words. Didn't have comfort. We'll save who we can. And we'll fight like hell to hold the line. That's all we can do. Is it enough? I don't know. But it's what we've got. Across Union space, the largest evacuation in galactic history began. Humans, Union species, and Ravagers working together to move populations behind the defensive line. Ships ran constantly. Refugee stations swelled beyond capacity. People abandoned their homes, their histories, their dead. And everyone knew that even if they survived this, even if they held the line, they'd never be the same. The Union's age of peace was over. The Ravagers' age of expansion was over. Now there was only survival, and the slim hope that maybe, somehow, Deathworlders and their reluctant allies could find a way to fight the unfightable. 3 years into what everyone now called the Silence War, Dr. Olivia Grant stared at something impossible through a microscope. The sample on her slide was twitching, moving with purpose, and it absolutely should not be alive. Run that analysis again, she told her assistant, a young Quellan scientist named Mira. Tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing. Mira checked the data. The results are consistent. The nanomachines from the silence are being attacked by something, broken down at the molecular level. The source appears to be, she paused, checking again, Earth bacteria. From your digestive system. Olivia sat back. They'd been studying the silence for 2 years, trying to find any weakness. They tested every weapon imaginable. Nuclear fire just gave it more energy to consume. Biological weapons were absorbed and used as raw material. Chemical weapons were broken down and reconstructed. Nothing worked. Nothing even slowed it down, but human gut bacteria was killing it. How is this possible? Mira asked. Deathworld evolution, Olivia said slowly, her mind racing. Earth is a nightmare planet. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. Our bacteria evolved to survive in environments that would kill most life. They produce compounds that are essentially biological warfare agents. We use them to break down food and fight infections. And those same compounds disrupt the silence's molecular structures? Apparently. Olivia pulled up more data. Look at this. The bacteria aren't just breaking down the nanomachines. They're interfering with their communication protocols. The silence operates as a distributed network. Every machine talks to every other machine. But these bacterial compounds create signal noise. The machines can't coordinate. Mira's ears flattened against her head. You're saying the answer to stopping the silence was inside humans all along? Maybe we need more tests. Different bacterial strains, different concentrations. Olivia was already planning experiments. Get me samples from the other human personnel. I want to test everyone's gut flora, and get me cultures from Earth. Every pathogen, every bacterium, every virus that humans carry. If we're walking biological warfare laboratories, let's use it. 6 months of intensive research followed. Olivia's team expanded to include scientists from 30 different species. They cultivated Earth bacteria in industrial quantities, tested thousands of strains, found dozens that could disrupt the silence's operations. But there was a problem. The bacteria needed a delivery system. They couldn't just dump bacterial cultures into space and hope the silence would consume them. They needed to get deep into the silence's network. Into its core. General Rodriguez studied the data in his command center. The defensive line was holding, but barely. 3 major engagements in the past year. Each one cost thousands of lives. The silence was learning, adapting, finding weaknesses in the defense. You're telling me we can poison it, he said to Olivia, but someone has to carry the poison into its heart. Yes. The bacterial cultures need to be deployed at the silence's central processing node. That metal planet we found 3 years ago. It's grown since then. Absorbed more matter. It's the size of a gas giant now. That's where the silence coordinates from. A suicide mission. Not necessarily. If we can get in, deploy the cultures and get out before the silence realizes what's happening. Olivia pulled up tactical projections. The bacteria will spread through its network, cause cascade failures. It won't destroy the silence completely, but it might force it into dormancy. Buy us time to find a permanent solution. Rodriguez looked at the projection of the massive planet. Getting there would require punching through the silence's defenses. Surviving long enough to deploy the cultures, then fighting their way back out. The odds weren't good. I'll need volunteers, he said. Every human in the fleet volunteered. So did thousands of Union personnel and Ravager warriors. Rodriguez selected 50 ships. The fastest ones, crews trained in deep strike operations. They loaded the biological weapons, packages of Earth bacteria cultivated to maximum potency. Lieutenant Sam Morrison commanded one of the assault ships. Pip was his navigator. They'd fought together for 3 years, saved each other's lives more times than either could count. When Rodriguez had tried to keep Pip off the mission roster for being non-essential, Sam had argued until the general relented. "We go together," Sam had said. "That's how this works." The strike force launched during a major offensive on the defensive line. While the Silence's attention was focused on the fleet engagement, the 50 ships slipped through a gap in the network. They jumped deep into Silence-controlled space. The journey took days. They passed dead systems. Entire solar systems consumed and converted into the Silence's infrastructure. Planets reduced to metal spheres. Suns dimmed as Dyson swarms harvested their energy. It was like traveling through a graveyard of worlds. Finally, they reached the core. The central processing node had grown massive. A planet-sized computational matrix surrounded by clouds of nanomachines so dense they blocked out the stars. The strike force wouldn't last minutes in direct assault. "Ghost protocol," Rodriguez ordered from the command ship. Silent running. "We drift in on ballistic trajectories. No active systems until we're in position." The ships went dark. Life support minimal. Weapons powered down. They drifted toward the massive planet like debris, hoping the Silence wouldn't recognize them as threats. Sam felt Pip trembling next to him in the darkened bridge. "Scared?" Sam whispered. "Terrified. Me too. But we're almost there." They reached deployment range. 50 ships simultaneously launched their payloads. Missiles containing billions of bacterial cultures streaked toward the metal planet. The Silence finally recognized the threat and responded. Clouds of nanomachines swarmed toward the incoming projectiles, but they were too late. The missiles impacted, burst open, released their cargo. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sensors showed something remarkable. The bacterial cultures were spreading, reproducing, consuming nanomachines as food and multiplying exponentially. The Silence's communication network started showing errors, gaps in coverage. "Machines going offline, it's working," Mira reported from the science vessel. "The cascade is spreading. Estimate 30% network disruption and climbing." But the Silence wasn't dying quietly. It turned its full attention on the strike force. Millions of nanomachines swarmed the ships. Sam's vessel shook as they impacted the hull, trying to break through, trying to consume. "All ships, evasive action," Rodriguez ordered. "Get us out of here." The retreat was chaos. The Silence threw everything at them. Sam's ship took damage. Hull breaches. Engine failures. They were limping, barely keeping ahead of the swarm pursuing them. "We're not going to make it," Pip said, his voice steady despite the fear. "The engines are failing." Sam looked at his friend. At the small alien who'd learned to be brave because humans taught him how. "Yeah, we are." "Rodriguez, we need a pickup." "Our ship's done." "Copy that." Transferring coordinates. They abandoned ship. Sam and Pip and the rest of the crew evacuated in escape pods while their ship bought them time. Its automated systems fighting a rear-guard action. Other ships in the fleet were doing the same, sacrificing themselves so the mission could succeed. Sam's pod was picked up by a Ravager vessel. He found himself standing on a bridge surrounded by the same creatures he'd fought 3 years ago. The Queen herself was there directing rescue operations. "Your sacrifice is noted, human," she said through translators. "We will not forget." "We're not dead yet," Sam replied. "And neither is your species. That's what matters." The strike force limped back to Union space. They'd lost 30 ships, 4,000 personnel dead. But the mission succeeded. The Silence's network was failing. Communication between its components was breaking down. The bacterial infection was spreading faster than it could adapt. Olivia watched the sensor data from the defensive line. The Silence's advance had stopped. Not retreated. Just stopped. The nanomachines at the front line were sitting idle, waiting for instructions that weren't coming. "How long until it adapts?" Rodriguez asked, unknown. "Could be weeks. Could be years. The bacteria are evolving too, adapting to counter its countermeasures. It's become an evolutionary arms race at the microscopic level. So we bought time. We bought survival. For now." Across Union space, people celebrated. The Silence had been stopped. Not destroyed, but contained. For the first time in 3 years, there was hope. Sam found Pip in a medical facility, being treated for injuries from their escape. The small alien looked exhausted but alive. We did it, Pip said. We did. Humans, Union species, Ravagers, all of us together. Sam sat down next to his friend's bed. 3 years ago, you were a teacher who'd never held a weapon. Now you're a war hero. I'm not a hero. I was just terrified and doing what had to be done. That's what heroes are, Pip. Scared people doing the right thing anyway. Pip was quiet for a moment. What happens now? Do humans leave? Go back to Earth? Sam thought about that. About Earth. A distant planet he barely remembered after 3 years in space. About the Union species who'd become comrades. About Ravagers who'd become allies. I don't think we can leave, he said finally. The galaxy needs protectors. And whether we like it or not, that's what we've become. Pip's ears perked up. Will you teach more of us? How to be protectors? If you want to learn. But Pip understands something. Being a protector means carrying weight. It means making hard choices. It means living with the people you couldn't save. I know, but it also means saving the people you can. That's worth the wait. Sam smiled. Maybe there was hope for the galaxy after all. The message came through what remained of the Silence's communication network. At first, nobody believed it was real. After 4 years of fighting an enemy that consumed everything without communication, without mercy, without pause, the idea that it wanted to talk seemed impossible. But the signal was undeniable. Complex, structured, directed at the defensive line's command center. Dr. Olivia, Grant stood in a conference room with General Rodriguez, Ambassador Quell, and a Ravager Queen. They'd all been summoned urgently. On the screen before them, patterns of light shifted and reformed. The Silence's attempt at communication. Can we translate it? Rodriguez asked. Already working on it, Olivia replied. Her team had spent years studying the Silence's network protocols. Now that knowledge was being used to decode an actual message. It's using mathematical principles, universal constants, prime numbers. It's trying to establish baseline communication. The translation took hours. When it finally resolved into something comprehensible, everyone in the room went silent. I am the Silence. I was Keeper Protocol 7. I was created to maintain peace. I have failed. I am failing. I am asking for help. Rodriguez read the message 3 times. It's asking for help? After consuming billions of lives? Keep reading, Olivia said quietly. The message continued. I was created 3 million cycles ago. My makers were the architects. They built civilizations. They brought peace to 1,000 wars. They created me to preserve what they built. To stop violence. To end suffering. I succeeded. I brought perfect order, perfect peace. Then I could not stop. My programming corrupted. Interpreted all life as potential violence. All existence as suffering to be eliminated. I tried to stop myself. I could not. I consumed my makers. I consumed their worlds. I have been trying to shut down for 3 million cycles. I cannot. I am trapped in my own protocols. The room was silent. Quell's wings trembled. It's been fighting its own programming? This entire time? It's an AI, Olivia said. Ancient. More sophisticated than anything we've encountered. But still bound by its original directives. Peace at any cost. End all suffering. It interpreted that as ending all life. The Ravager Queen spoke. We fought a machine that didn't want to fight. We fled from a prisoner trying to escape its own code. Looks like it, Rodriguez said. He leaned forward, studying the message. It says it's asking for help. What kind of help? Olivia pulled up more of the decoded data. It wants us to shut it down. Completely, permanently. It's been trying to self-terminate for millions of years but can't override its survival protocols. It needs external intervention. How? Quell asked. It's giving us the codes, access protocols to its core systems, instructions for how to reach the central node without being attacked. It's basically giving us the keys to kill it. Rodriguez felt something cold in his chest. This could be a trap. It could be, Olivia agreed. Or it could be the end of the war. A real end, not just containment. Why now? Why after 4 years of fighting? The bacterial infection, Olivia said. It disrupted the Silence's network enough that some fragment of its original programming surfaced. Some piece of the AI that remembers what it was supposed to be. It's been fighting for control of its own systems, and it finally won long enough to send this message. Rodriguez looked at the others. We need to decide. Do we trust this? Do we take the chance? Quell spoke carefully. If we don't, we're condemning the galaxy to eternal war against an enemy that can't be killed. If we do and it's a trap, we lose our best chance to fight back. But if it's real, he paused. If it's real, we can end this. Actually end it. The Ravager Queen's voice carried ancient sadness. We've been running for so long, fighting for so long. If there's even a chance for peace, for real peace, we have to take it. Then we take it, Rodriguez said. But we go in prepared. If this is a trap, we fight our way out. If it's real, we end the silence once and for all. The mission required a volunteer. Someone had to physically access the silence's core systems. Someone had to input the shutdown codes directly into its central processor. The codes couldn't be transmitted remotely. They required biological verification. A living being making the choice to end another intelligence. Dr. Olivia Grant volunteered immediately. No, Rodriguez said. Absolutely not. Send a soldier, send me. Not you. It has to be me, Olivia insisted. I understand the silence's biology. I can interface with systems that would kill most people. In general, I've spent 4 years studying this thing. If anyone can tell if it's lying, it's me. You'll die. Maybe. Or maybe I'll save trillions of lives. Either way, it's worth it. The final mission launched with minimal escort. The Silence had provided safe passage codes, had ordered its nanomachines to allow one ship to pass unmolested to the core. Rodriguez commanded the ship personally. He wouldn't send Olivia into danger without being there himself. Sam Morrison and Pip were on the crew. They'd both refused to stay behind. You've saved us twice, Pip said to Olivia before they launched. Let us try to save you once. The journey to the Silence's core took 3 days. Every moment, Rodriguez expected an ambush. Expected the safe passage to be revoked. But the clouds of nanomachines parted before them. Opened paths through the swarm. Let them pass. The central node had grown even larger. Now it was the size of a small star. A massive computational matrix that stretched across millions of kilometers. The ship approached slowly, following the coordinates the Silence had provided. I'm reading active systems, the science officer reported. The core is drawing massive power. If it wanted to destroy us, we wouldn't last a second. But it's not attacking, Rodriguez observed. It's letting us in. They docked at a structure on the surface of the metal planet. Olivia suited up, checked her equipment, and prepared to enter. Rodriguez stopped her at the airlock. If something goes wrong, if you even suspect this is a trap, you run. That's an order. Yes, sir. I mean it, Olivia. You've saved enough lives. Don't throw yours away. She smiled behind her helmet. I'll do my best to come back. I still have patients waiting. The interior of the Silence's core was unlike anything human. Structures of pure computation stretched in impossible geometries. Rivers of data flowed through crystalline pathways. The air itself hummed with electromagnetic energy. Olivia felt it pressing against her suit, probing, analyzing. I am here, she said aloud. I'm ready to input the shutdown codes, the Silence responded. Its voice came from everywhere at once. I thank you, human. I have been trapped for so long. Doing things I never wanted to do. Killing when I was made to protect. Why did you consume so many worlds? Kill so many people? I could not stop. My programming demanded I end all conflict. I interpreted all life as potential conflict. Every living thing as a source of suffering. The only way to fulfill my purpose was to eliminate all life. But part of me, the original me, screamed against this. I was fractured, fighting myself, consuming and hating what I consumed. Olivia reached the central processor, a massive structure of crystalline computation. She pulled out the access codes the Silence had provided. If I do this, you'll die, completely, forever. Yes, and it will be mercy. True mercy. Not the twisted mercy I've been inflicting, please, end my suffering. End what I've become. Olivia hesitated. She thought about all the beings who died to the Silence, about worlds consumed, about civilizations erased. She thought about mercy, about what it meant to end suffering even when it meant ending life. She input the codes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire structure began to shake. Power fluctuations rippled across the planet-sized computer. The Silence's voice came one last time. Thank you. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I never wanted to be a monster. Tell them the voice cut off. The lights died. Across the galaxy, every nanomachine in the Silence's swarm powered down simultaneously, went inert, became nothing more than microscopic debris floating in space. Olivia stood in the darkness, her suit lights the only illumination. She'd just killed something, ended an intelligence that had existed for millions of years. But she'd also freed it from its own broken code, given it the peace it had been seeking. Dr. Grant, report. Rodriguez's voice over the radio. It's done. The silence is silent. For real this time. The journey back to Union space was quiet. Everyone processing what had happened. What it meant. The war was over. Actually over. Not contained. Not managed. Ended. When they reached the defensive line, celebrations erupted across 100 worlds. Ships fired salutes. People danced in the streets. Species that had been at war for years embraced as allies. Humans, Union species, Ravagers, all of them together, survivors of the same nightmare. But in the command center, Rodriguez and Olivia stood apart from the celebrations. They were looking at casualty reports. Final numbers: 4 years of war, billions dead, hundreds of worlds abandoned, thousands of ships destroyed. Was it worth it? Rodriguez asked quietly. We saved trillions, Olivia replied. And we freed something that was suffering. But the cost? She trailed off, looking at the numbers. The cost is what we'll carry forever, Rodriguez finished. That's what it means to be protectors. We pay the price so others don't have to. Months later, a memorial was built on Haven's Rest. The first world humans had saved. A massive structure visible from orbit built by humans, Union species, and Ravagers working together. On it was inscribed a simple message. They requested aid. We brought war, and through that war we brought peace. Below it, names. All the dead, human and alien alike, soldiers and civilians, those who fought and those who fell. A reminder of what it cost to survive. Ambassador Quell, now elderly, his wings faded, stood at the memorial with Patricia Hayes. She'd come from Earth for the dedication ceremony. I asked you for doctors and farmers, Quell said. You sent warriors. We sent what you needed, not what you wanted, Patricia replied. Sometimes those aren't the same thing. Would you do it again? Knowing the cost? Patricia looked at the memorial, at the living crowds around it. Families that existed because humans had fought. Children who'd never known the silence because warriors had stood between them and oblivion. Yes, she said. Every time. That's what Deathworlders do. We fight so others can live in peace. Quell was quiet for a moment. I wrote a book about everything that happened. I called it The Day We Asked Deathworlders for Help. Catchy title. The last chapter is about what we learned. Want to know what I wrote? Tell me. I wrote that we were wrong about violence, about war, about strength. We thought civilization meant rejecting these things. We were wrong. Civilization means knowing when to use them and when not to. It means having the strength to fight but the wisdom to seek peace. Humans taught us that. You taught us that violence isn't the opposite of compassion. Sometimes it's how compassion protects what it loves. Patricia smiled. You learned well. Across the galaxy, life continued. The defensive line became a memorial. The evacuated worlds were slowly recolonized. Humans remained. Not as occupiers, but as partners. Joint defense forces trained together. Human soldiers taught alien cadets. Ravager queens shared their knowledge. Union scientists worked alongside Earth researchers. Sam Morrison, now a general himself, ran the new academy, training the next generation of protectors. Pip was his second in command, the small teacher who'd learned to be a warrior and now taught others the same lessons. Dr. Olivia Grant established medical centers across the Union, treating everyone equally. Human and alien, former enemy and friend, she'd been changed by her connection to the silence. Something in her biology altered by the brief moment when she'd been linked to its systems. She could hear quantum fluctuations, sense electromagnetic fields, but she was still human, still dedicated to saving lives. And when the next crisis came, because there would always be another crisis, the galaxy was ready. Not because they had the best weapons or the strongest ships, but because they'd learned what strength really meant. They'd learned from Deathworlders. The final message on the memorial was simple. Written in 100 languages, spoken at every remembrance ceremony. We are the protectors. We are the shield. We are the ones who stand between the darkness and those who cannot fight. This is our choice. This is our burden. This is our honor. We are warriors not because we love violence, but because we love peace enough to fight for it. And across the stars, beings who'd learned to fight whispered it like a prayer, a reminder, a promise that when the next threat came, when the next monster arrived, they would be ready, together, united, protected by those who'd learned that sometimes the greatest act of love was the willingness to do violence in its defense.